Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I know, it's very loud all of a sudden. I apologize for that. Thank you very much for coming this evening, everybody. Thank you. This is our space. This is the G Technology Hollywood office, soon to become the G Technology Hollywood studio. We're very, very honored tonight to be live streaming this event. Peter, who I'll pass over to in a second, we'll talk about that. But we're also very, very honored to be hosting Slamdance tonight at this event. So please put your hands together for Peter and the Slamdance crew, and he will introduce everybody.
Thank you very much, Martin, and welcome everyone. And I guess a few formalities before we begin. I want to thank very much the GTech team. I want to thank Miriam and Mai, we've been working with for a very long time. We're really happy to be here tonight. I also want to thank our friends at Teradek and also Blackmagic for powering our live stream tonight. This is going to be live streamed. And I know that we've got 2 workshops tonight. We're looking forward to tips and tricks from the workflow masters, but the one that we're going to begin with first is the Slamdance workshop, and it's about building your career through festivals and distribution. And before I introduce everyone, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background about Slamdance and actually why I'm standing here tonight. So some of us at Slamdance have got academic backgrounds and we love academia, but most of us did not go to film school. Most of us learned the hard way. We failed sometimes, but out of that failure came all kinds of successes at Slamdance. We got rejected by Sundance in 1995. Every single filmmaker that was at Slamdance, the first one, they all got rejected by this festival. But instead of disappearing with our tails between our legs, we decided that we would come together as a community and we would support one another. And this theme of community, of partnerships, is something that we're going to be speaking about tonight, I know, with our alumni. And also one of identity. Slamdance has established identity. It proved that as an artist-led organization, it could really discover great new filmmakers of tomorrow. I'm sure some of you, I know you've entered your films at this festival this year. We're really looking forward to seeing them. But we are here very much for you. We did learn things the hard way. This workshop has come about through things which we didn't learn at film school, things that we wished that we had learned while we were, before we had made our films, before we had come to a festival. So I'm going to now introduce to you, first of all, Tanaz, please come up. Tanaz Hashami, welcome. Tanaz is I'm going to let you.
Cool. Her name is Tanaz. She speaks about herself in third person. She is a filmmaker who's had 3 films at Slamdance. And she's from Iran, and she's an Aquarius. What am I saying? Is that good?
That's a great introduction, yes. And I see Pablo Bryant over there. Pablo Bryant is the director of Mr. Fish. Come on up, Pablo. And he's our winning filmmaker from this year's festival. Pablo?
Hi. Can I do what you did? Because that was so good. This is Mr. Fish's art. Slamdance liked him so much they hired him to do the art for them this year. And I'm going to talk about distribution. What else can I say? And festivals, and take any questions, and we'll roll with it.
And Cullen Holback. Cullen Holback is another Slamdance alumni and documentary feature filmmaker. Cullen, welcome.
Thanks. I mean, you know how much I love Slamdance. Slamdance has been great to me. I've had 2 features launch out of it with, I think, pretty good distribution success. So, sorry I didn't get the hat memo, but I'm looking forward to the talk.
Yes, please sit down. And Gia and Trevor from Rocksteady Row, our Grand Jury Prize winners actually this year, producer and director. Ladies first, Gia.
Hi, I'm Gia, and I was one of the producers for Rocksteady Row.
And I'm Trevor Stevens, and I was the director, and we are very happy to be with you guys today and talk to you about all things Slamdance, getting in there and what to do while you're there and all after. So yeah, we're excited to be here, and thanks for having us.
And last but not least, a short filmmaker from Slamdance alumni. I'd like to welcome up Amanda Boniutu. Amanda? Welcome, Amanda.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm a short animated filmmaker. I was in Slamdance 2017. It was an amazing experience, and I'm looking forward to talking about festivals and other things.
Great, thank you very much, Amanda. And I think there we go, have a seat. I've got a clicker here and a little slideshow. So we have here then tonight for you a... Yeah. Oh, I think Martin might be... No, please sit down. I can stand. So we have documentary features, we have narrative feature, and short filmmakers, animation, and short narrative. So we just wanted to make sure that most actually of our films that we play at Slamdance are represented. We believe very much in the power of short filmmaking as much as feature. Sometimes, sometimes you hear perhaps too much emphasis on feature filmmaking, but there have been plenty of great stories at Slamdance coming out of short filmmaking and filmmakers that have gone on to really change entertainment. So you may have questions for short filmmakers and features afterwards, but we just really wanted to make sure that sort of all types of filmmaking is represented here tonight. So thank you very much for coming and getting stuck into this. So bear with me as we start this slideshow. Does it work? Oh, there we go, it works. So building your career through festivals and distribution. As I was saying, we don't come from an academic background, but I think one of the things that is often missing from film education and just sort of basic know-how is how actually can you build and sustain a career. And I think that one of the great things that we have here tonight are filmmakers that are going through this right now and have actually found success in being able to build their career and begin to sustain a career in filmmaking. So that's very much sort of a theme of tonight. Oh, I'm going back. Okay. So you may have thought the hard work was done. So let's just talk about perhaps where most of you are right now. So we understand that you've made films, you've started to submit them to film festivals, and this is the subject now we want to cover. You may think then the filmmaking, all that hard work has been done, but oh no, it has not. So Pablo, can you start? Can you sort of speak a little bit more about this? What it was like for you when you finished your documentary before the time that you were about to submit to film festivals, and what you thought then versus what you know now in terms of how you're going to prepare your film for festival submission.
I don't really know what I thought then. I mean, I was sort of like, this was my first feature, and so it was sort of like a wild animal, I'm just like foraging for berries in the woods. I don't know what I'm looking for. But, you're trying to weigh, I think initially you're trying to weigh what festivals, right? Because everybody wants to have the big opening festival, And as I was driving here, I thought the only thing that's a constant theme for me is hard choices. There's always hard choices, in terms of you may get into 2 festivals and which one are you going to choose, and that was a learning curve for me, to try and understand the value of all the different festivals and what they represented, Obviously the whole thing is sort of leading towards distribution and selling the film. So, I was sort of wrongly thinking of just like, if I could just get it to HBO, and not really thinking of finding a distributor. And of course, what precedes that is finding a sales agent. And, I'm sure we could all talk about that too. So I don't know. I don't really know how to answer your question. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, that's a good start there, Pablo. Thank you. And maybe if we just go down the line here, I think sort of following on from this, Pablo, what sort of now comes to mind is okay, so you weren't quite sure what film festivals that might be of interest to you, might be useful. Cullen, this, this is your last film at Slamdance. It was your second documentary feature. You've already gone through a cycle. What were your choices in looking at film festivals in terms of what you thought would be a good fit? You made an environmental documentary, so can you tell me a little bit about your preparation of that and what you were thinking about preparing, actually not just for one festival, but really for for really the next 12 months, because that's what it usually is, isn't it? It's a 12-month cycle here that you usually are looking at for your festival exhibition.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I had a film in Slamdance back in 2013, which is also a documentary. And then this one, so that was Terms and Conditions May Apply, and then we had What Lies Upstream. And it was really, I mean, having been at Slamdance before, it was an obvious sort of fit. I knew how Park City kind of worked. I mean, if you're looking, part of why Slamdance made so much sense for us to do a premiere at, you're just in the place where all the buyers are. I mean, you're in the place where Hollywood goes for, a week and some change. And there aren't really many other festivals out there that offer that kind of opportunity. So you'll find that sales agents, they'll probably be like, I'm, maybe holding out for a couple of Sundance films, but they are interested in Slamdance films, and you get your film in front of buyers. So having gone through that process before, knowing that Slamdance, I think more than maybe any other festival besides Sundance puts your film in front of buyers, it was an obvious choice. There are maybe like 4 or 5 other festivals I might consider, but because Slamdance had been so successful in the past, it was an easy choice.
Tanaz, as a short filmmaker, and you've had films at Slamdance before, you know the festival circuit very well. What are you looking for in your festival experience? What do you want to get out of it? And Tanaz has been very clever, very smart in creating an identity for herself. And again, that's going to be a theme I think that we're going to be returning here to amongst all of us here about creating an identity for yourself and for your filmmaking. But you've done exceptionally well at that, Tanaz.
I wear the same hat and shoes. Festival experience. I think when I started with festivals, I submitted to everything, because you don't know. You're like, oh, this sounds great. And then after a while, you start to realize that every festival has its own identity, and you realize that your films may really just not be right for a festival, and so you don't need to waste your time, I've never been a Sundance filmmaker. I think it's a very specific festival, as is all the other ones. Some of them are slightly broader, not as specific, but having now made 5 short films, I'm definitely a more Slamdance anarchy. I don't think I've made anything that would fit into a broader festival. So that was something that I just learned.
But through your hard work too, that's made you stand out as well, hasn't it? People now identify you for being that, as it were, that kind of filmmaker, which is attractive in and unto itself. It's got nothing to do with celebrity culture, this identity. It's to do with who you are as an artist, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm in a place now before making my first feature where people know what to expect, and I think that's comforting, if anything.
Yeah, and I think it's not just Slamdance. There are festivals out there that really do embrace this type of individual filmmaker. I think sometimes when you look at Without a Box and all those festival choices, like where do I begin? Well, one thing we would say, all of us, is call that film festival if you have questions. Get them on the line. If they're not interested in speaking with you or responding to an email, it's probably a sign that you shouldn't submit to them and spend your money, because we all know it gets very expensive to submit to film festivals. But I think you'll be surprised. It's very difficult to sort of see the wood for the trees, as it were, with all of these film festivals. But you'll see a lot of them, especially the regional film festivals, are very interested in unique filmmaking voices that they want to support. Maybe you're in combo here in many ways with Rocksteady Row, but you have a great story, Gio and Trevor, about Rocksteady Row. your decision about coming to Slamdance and other festivals around the time that you completed your film. By the way, this is sort of, if you like, a student project. Rocksteady Row actually came out of a student-led production. So, Gia.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor and I were just reminiscing before we started, but when we began searching for film festivals, we had already been editing for a year. And post-production was very hard and very long for us. It's our first feature, and it was kind of a scary time. We were trying to find the right home for our film. And we heard of Slamdance as kind of being the underdog festival, and that really appealed to us in both the way that we made our film and just the way we view ourselves. So it seemed like the perfect fit, and we actually submitted on the last possible day, an hour before the deadline, which I don't recommend, as a work in progress. So it was kind of scary, but when we got the call a month later, I think, like Colin said, it was kind of the obvious choice as a home for us, but we quickly learned that was kind of just one of the first hurdles we went through, because then we just had to finish the film and get ready for the festival, learn about publicity, sales agents, and all of that. But Slamdance is such a community. You provided us with workshops and really got us prepared for the festival.
Just to hop on top of that, I mean, she's exactly right. Like, the topic of our film, we knew it was a very off-the-wall concept. You know, we did a spaghetti western called Settings, so we knew this was going to be a very different and bold voice, and so we knew it was easy for an idea like that to get lost, even within a sea of unique voices. And the thing about Slamdance, you know, being, I mean, personally for me and my writer Bomani, we were huge fans of Slamdance even before, and this was no shade at Sundance. Sundance is great, but you know, a lot of films get kind of, you know, put on the surface at Sundance with all the big hitters, and we were always, you know, looked at ourselves as the underdogs. We wanted to be part of the underdog community because some of our favorite filmmakers come out of Slamdance, like Chris Nolan and the Russo brothers. Like, we were heavily inspired by. And so when we got that, you know, that email about getting into Slamdance, we had the fattest smiles on our faces because we wanted to be part of that family. And you know, we had to work our tail off to get the film done and get ready for it. And we had the hustle while we were at the festival, but it was so much fun, and it was. That spirit never quit, even after we left that festival. It still continues, and it's something that stays with me and always will.
Amanda, so animator. So we love animation at Slamdance. We have a long history of showing animated films, but in your consideration of Slamdance and other film festivals for your film, Batfish Soup, how did you go about preparing for submitting to festivals? How did you target? You know, how did you target? What did you want to get out of that festival experience?
So I think similarly to what some other people have said about, this was my first film that I'd ever submit to a festival. So I just blasted it out into the universe. I submitted to everything, and there were a lot of drawbacks to that, which include expenses and not knowing anything about what I was trying to get. But what was nice about that process was that the festivals that really cared about the work I was making just like sort of floated to the top. And now that's, I sort of know where I'm trying to put it and where it belongs in terms of community, and those festivals that, like you were saying, really make you feel like you're a part of the family. Now with my thesis film, getting into the festival circuit, I'm no longer submitting to hundreds and hundreds of festivals. I'm just choosing the ones that treated me really well and that welcomed me as a filmmaker with a unique voice. It made me feel like I actually belonged, as opposed to an animator in this massive festival that has no personality. I've been to a lot of festivals like that now, and those were, even if they paid for your flight, they were just not, they were not welcoming, and they didn't quite give you this sense of community like Slamdance does.
So aside then from the experience that you've gained from now knowing that, what would you now do differently if you were to start all over again when you didn't know those film festivals, and sort of finding out a little bit more about what you actually now need from a festival experience for your work?
I think I would talk to people first. I think I would reach out to my surrounding community and ask about which festivals are more likely to make you feel like a human and appreciated, instead of which ones are going to give you a bigger name, or which ones are going to, or more likely to accept you even. Yeah, I would just talk to people. I would reach out.
Okay, great. So the one thing I think that we should just go back on, Pablo touched on this, is you've just finished your film, or you're just about finishing your film, and I think what a lot of filmmakers don't realize, especially after they've made their first feature or their first short or their second or third short, is actually how much work can be done before you submit to any festival, which will really help your cause, which will really help your career. And so there are a few things on here which I think that we can just we can touch on. So really finish your film before you start to submit. So we sometimes get questions, I submitted last year, I didn't get in, can we resubmit? You can at Slamdance, but for a lot of film festivals, they will say, no, you can't. This really speaks to, as a group, and it'd be interesting to see what you all did here with your films. You often work alone, and we've just been hearing about how great it is when you come into a festival community, how you feel that support and how you feel empowered from that. But oftentimes, let's face it, we have been creating in these lonely spaces, either in a small partnership or sometimes maybe as a single animator completely alone. And that can be really tough. Perspective. So how do you find that perspective? And this is where it can be really tough, but I can really encourage you, and maybe we can speak about this too, is to do test screenings. Even today, Chris Nolan will do test screenings on his work. He will want to get an audience response. Those things which he thought might be really good may not be working, and he will change that. So he will still be as humble as he was with his first feature on a studio picture, which is costing hundreds of millions of dollars. And so, just quickly, so did you all do test screenings of your work, and what was that experience like, and how tough that was? I know it can be really harming to the ego, but look, most of us here are making a film for an audience. It may be a small audience. You may intentionally want it to have a small audience, but for a feature film that you want to sell, it's going to be for a larger audience. So why wouldn't you do this? Pablo?
I mean, a couple of thoughts come to mind. I think when I used to have this reaction to test screenings, when you hear about big Hollywood movies doing that stuff, and I always sort of turned my stomach because it's just like, it's coming from the view of, oh, they're trying to create a product, right? And they're going to, people don't like the dirty bits, so they take out the dirty bits or whatever. It's sort of sanitizing it because people can't handle sort of raw, edgy material. But the value that I found with it, my editor came up with this great list of questions for people who saw the film. And it's really about just direct feedback, You'll get a lot of, God, I really love this character, Oh, well, that's great to know. I've been staring at them for 6 months. I don't even know who they are anymore, So it's great to see what's working as well as what's not working. I think that's the obvious value of it. I had people who said they hated some of the characters, and I had to come to grips with, oh, okay, my character is controversial, and some people are not going to. Right, some people are not going to like that. That's the point of being controversial. I have to sort of learn to live with that. So, there's these sort of intangible values that you get from talking to people about it. I'll just quickly say, I heard Kirby Dick, who's a great filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, talk about this process. And he said, don't just get all filmmakers. Bring your grandma in, bring your 9-year-old niece in, whatever, And when somebody says, I didn't like that thing, instead of responding, you turn it back on everybody else that's watching the film and you say, what do you think about what that person just said? Is that just that one person, is that an outlier who's just got this prickly thing about red sweaters or something? Or, or is this a universal thing that people are struggling with and don't understand, So, the thing about making the film is you get too close to it, and it's hard to really tell what's working and what's not after a while. So trust that it's a good process.
Colin, did you get too close to your film? Because, of course, you're in your last film, aren't you? You're central, actually, to it. So.
Yeah, that's really punishing when you have an audience watch it. You say, hey, am I terrible in this? I do not know how to release a film or submit. I will never submit to festivals now without having done multiple test screenings. I mean, I try to get at least 30 people there because I need to be able to weigh what's working, what's not. I mean, 15 is kind of the minimum. And what you're looking for is consistency, really. Like, what are people agreeing on? And I try not to let them talk amongst themselves before I do it because they might, contaminate each other's opinions. So, and I will do really thorough surveys. They're like punishing surveys. And a lot of times, like, I'll focus on things like, where were you bored? Where were you drifting? What confused you? And if people are confused by things, it's really just the language of cinema and you're not conveying something right. So, like, sometimes you might want people to be confused, and sometimes you might, you're trying to convey information and it's not getting across. So, I feel like that's, like, one of the most important things. Everything on this list is great because I totally did not follow that first rule. There were many instances where I submitted an unfinished film, and it was really dumb. And maybe I was doing that because I just wanted to be finished. You're like, if I send this out and someone tells me it's accepted in the festival, finally I can be done. And you'll know when your film is done. And I get, like, a lot of people use festivals as deadlines. They're like, this will at least get me to my next cut. And you'll submit it, and then you'll realize later, oh, God, I needed, like, a whole nother year to work on this. That happens. But you just remember that you're competing against people who have finished films. And so when a screener's sitting down to watch something, if you're not a known quantity, odds are that it's going to be pretty hard unless you have something truly remarkable to kind of make it through the cut. So, yeah, I think everything on this list is spot on.
Tanaz?
Yeah, I agree. I've had multiple test screenings for everything that I've ever done. This last one that I submitted was done at AFI, and they made you have mandatory test screenings. And just to let you know how important test screenings are, there's multiple questions, but they list you between 1 to 5. So 5 is good and 1 is really bad for various things. And I remember my first test screening, how confident I was, and when I got that 2.2, and, like, nobody knew what the plot was, or why is this character so mad, or, like, it was, like, really bad. And then by my 4th test screening, I feel like I kind of started to have a film. So, yeah, I can't imagine making a film without screening it multiple times.
Same as well. We had many, many test screenings with filmmakers and friends and family. We even had a test screening with just a room full of sound designers to give us sounds on notes. But I think it actually ended up shaping our film in a very unique way. We ended up doing some pickups and additional filming, which I think Trevor can speak to more.
You guys all made excellent points. I'm going to hop on top of it. Best analogy I can give is doing a test screen is like being unplugged from the Matrix. You've been living in this world, this dream world for a long time. You think you know the film, but you really don't. And it takes that cold water to the face, and it's the hardest thing to do. I mean, it's like getting out of bed really early. It's just something like you don't want to do, and you have to kick yourself to do it, but it hurts, and I want to really make that clear that it does hurt. It's probably maybe the hardest part of that process, but it's so good for you. You know, you do it, you listen, and you got to shut up, most importantly, and listen to what people are saying. Because you can always, again, the whole thing, the argument of, like, whether or not you listen to the, that's a cute dog, whether or not you listen to the notes or not is, something you can come back to. But you take a notepad, you shut up, you listen, you take it all in, and you have a couple days, even if you need to buy yourself a drink, go to the Bahamas for a week, whatever, and you come back and you come with a rational mind and be like, okay, this is audience reaction. At the end of the day, you're making a movie for other people, not yourself inside of a basement. So you want to know that you're getting it. A lot of people say, like, they're scared to do screenings or they don't want to listen because their film is, unique or experimental. But, like, even that has an audience. Even if you need to find those people, like, the idea is that you're communicating this. So it's really, really important to hear from other people and understand what your film is doing. Because, at the end of the day, we want an effect, and you need to know right away before you give it to a big screening, and it has posters everywhere, and people are running to see it, that it's doing what you want to do.
Man, this might be a little bit different for you, maybe harder for you to accept, because, of course, with animation, sometimes animation, and they will get to the end, and it's very difficult, isn't it, to go back and start recreating. I think also for experimental film as well. You could argue there's a singular vision. So maybe you have a different viewpoint on this.
I mean, I think it depends on what kind of filmmaker you are. But I'm the type of animator who kind of works like a live action filmmaker, which is really, really not smart. But I generate a lot of material and then I end up editing it down anyway, even though it took me hours and hours to make. But what I was going to say is that I made the mistake of showing my film to my mom first. And it was a really, really bad idea because she didn't give constructive feedback. She was just like, I don't know what this means. And that prompted me to have, I guess what you could call a pre-screening with a lot of my peers and a lot of really close friends who gave me very honest opinions. And I wasn't in the room, which I think was good at that point because I was so close to this film that I couldn't even watch it anymore. I was like, oh, I just need someone to tell me if anything is consistent, if anything is working. And then after that, after getting some pretty consistent feedback, I started sending it just to individuals because it can get tricky to get a place to do a pre-screening, depending on where you are. So just sending it off to people who hadn't seen it before at all, just to get a really raw perspective. Yeah, it's very valuable.
So just before we move on, I want to talk about files, 5-letter word. So I'm going to just give a collection of actually sort of feedback that we've got at Slamdance. We've touched on some of it here. But we talked about sort of the next 12 months. The film is finished. At last it is finished. You're going to submit to film festivals. What most filmmakers don't do, and we think that they all should, is to organize their files before any exhibition of your film, public exhibition of your film is taking place. So let's talk about those files for a moment. So a finished film. So it could be an Apple ProRes file, but it's an exhibition file of your film. It should also now involve closed captions. So any commercial exhibition are going to require closed captions now. You have to deliver that. Even festivals are beginning to request closed captions. Also, do you own your work? Well, of course you own your work. You think, I wrote it. It has our name on it. But do you? Have you actually gone to a government website to fill out what's called a Form PA, which is your copyright certificate, which says, I own this film? If you haven't, just go to that site. It's a really easy process. It costs $35 to own your film with this copyright certificate. You'll get it in the mail 6, 7, 8 months later. But it also becomes what's known as a chain of title. The date that you applied records when your script or when your film was finished. It is the most important document that you have to prove that you own this. So that is also something, a file which you could put on a drive which shows a complete array of all these materials that you need. Another one would be what I would call an electronic press kit. This is going to include a description of your film. It's going to include the chosen stills that you have of your film. It's going to include a trailer that you've already done for it. It could include B-roll or a clip. It should also include a bio. It should also help to really form your film's identity and also the filmmaker's identity. There should be a director's statement in there. There should be a record of how you made your film, a story which is attractive, which is your own, which you can use to help publicize your film. So you just don't, when you do get into a film festival and you come to a publicist, just hand the film over to a publicist and say, there you go. That's not what a publicist is going to want. They're going to want all these files, all these materials on a drive. And then, of course, you want to back it up and have a second or a third drive because one may go down. Do that before you start going out to film festivals. Don't do that, start doing that when your film is finished, when you're absolutely, you want to drop dead with exhaustion. And everyone, perhaps at that point on your team, Trevor and Jay, you've got incredible stamina. You've been going now for a long time together. But this can be an exhausting process. So get all those things ready, not only to protect your film, but to protect yourselves as a team. The other thing, too, which you can't put on a drive, is this human factor of how you are coming together still as filmmakers to come out and publicize your film. You have to be as a team. You have to have that same discipline, that commitment that you had that day you decided that you were going to make your short film, your feature film, whatever it was. And I can tell you from experience, from alumni experience, for many, that disappears. And some have come back to us and they say how much they regret that, how they wish they had stopped and just reminded themselves of why they came together in the first place. And just before we move on, maybe, Gia and Trevor, you might like to speak to that, because here is an ensemble. I know we've only got 2 of the ensemble here, but you've perhaps never seen such a great big filmmaking community as the Rocksteady Road Crew. So how did you keep everyone together? Because you're still very much together today, and you're creating for the next feature. I think that's a very, yeah, both of you are great. I'm sure you've got a great answer to that.
Well, from the get-go, our whole team was composed of people we worked with in the past. There was a lot of new faces, but I guess to answer your question immediately, just, during the whole process, we kept everyone informed of what was going on. The second we got on the Slamdance, everyone knew. We sent out an email, or Gia sent out the email actually, and Gia was huge in this. I mean, she just made sure, and things I would forget, we'd always talk with each other and be like, did we do this, and she'd just be like, did you let this person know, and we were on the same page in terms of just making sure that, like, down, actors, crew, everyone knew what was going on, and it really had them be part of the film, It wasn't that, like, after production that it was all over. Like, everyone was involved. It was basically like making a newsletter for everyone saying, hey, here's where we're at with the film. And by the time it came down to Slamdance, we let everyone knew the costs of going over, where we're going to stay, that we're going to try and all, pitch in for Airbnb, yada, yada, and so forth. Long story short, over 70% of our crew and cast came out to Utah, which the lovely folks at Slamdance definitely were just like, we're very inviting for it, but they're like, and it made for a fun time, but we were really happy to have them there. And having that support was huge because we put everyone to work. One of the funnest parts, hopefully I'm not going too far into this, but when we get to Slamdance, you got to put those posters up, and they are aggressive. It's like war. It's like a snowy war out there, because they have like the huge, nice SUVs from Sundance coming by and putting up the HBO poster and so forth. And so you're the ragtag team, and so where you have like maybe like, I don't know, like 100 people from HBO putting a poster on every 5 minutes, you got to eat. We had like, maybe like 10 people were like, okay, go. We took a bunch of posters and we were stapling over HBO and this, and we were getting aggressive and nasty, and we got some extra people to come to our screening, and it was that, hey, all for one, Three Musketeers mentality, like, let's get into it. And having them there was huge because it just put more of a show. Like you're saying, it's about making a presence and a team spirit there, and that was a huge part of it.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, post was so long, and it is easy to get disconnected from the film, I think, especially if you're not key crew, but I genuinely mean this when I say I think Slamdance kind of reignited everything for everyone. It brought us all back together. We are so lucky to have so many of our cast and crew there. And, once we got there wasn't much else we could do. We had to let go of the film. So we all enjoyed ourselves, and we had an amazing time. And it was just kind of a reunion and reignited our love for the film.
Did you make a pact before you started production of how long you would stay together? And what I mean by that is not just during the production, but just during the exhibition and after that in the future. Did you have any plan in mind at the beginning?
Yeah, it was a blood pact. We made it the first day. From the get-go, I mean, I don't think either Gia and I knew what the journey was going to be like. It was so hard to predict, We didn't expect to flash forward all the way here, but I mean, Gia was excellent from the get-go. I basically said, hey, would you come on and produce a feature for me? And I think that she definitely didn't think it was going to be as crazy of an adventure as it was, but it was one of those things as it continued, like, we kind of checked in with one another and made sure we're doing everything correctly, and having her as a partner, and everyone on the team for that matter, I didn't feel alone during the process, and that was a huge part, having a team spirit was huge because, it's hard as an individual, especially when it's your first time making anything. A short feature does not matter what it is. You miss the details, and so it's huge to have people who support and really have your back in doing so, and we did that for each other.
In several ways, we've been asking this question. So why festivals? But Colin, is there an alternative when you finish your film to bring your film out? Do you think to maybe a combination of some film festivals, not film festivals, or go a different route in finding an audience and a potential sale for your feature?
Like, would I go out into the world without a film festival to kind of launch it? I mean, I've never done that. When I'm making a film, I'm always thinking, like, which festival do I want to premiere at? I suppose that if you had really built, I guess, like a fan base and a rabid, group of people who are excited to see the release of the film on Kickstarter, or maybe you're a YouTuber or something and you have a built-in audience, that could happen. I mean, you can, if you have the connections, you can take a film out and try to pre-sell it to an HBO or a Netflix or something like that. But unless you've done that, and then they'll do a lot of the legwork about like placing it in a festival. No, I mean, I've made a bunch of films, and I've always done the festival circuit. I don't know always how effective the circuit is beyond kind of the premiere and maybe a couple of other top-tier festivals. Sometimes it's useful, not because of distribution as much, but just because you'll make relationships that you'll find useful for future projects. Or you might pick up a review here or there that just adds to the Rotten Tomatoes Tomatometer over time. That can be valuable. But no, I mean, I think that planning for festivals and planning for the long run, I mean, so often, like, it's a marathon, it's a series of marathons making these movies. And when you get to the festival, you think, oh, God, finally I'm done. Like, I just want to get rid of this thing. And really, you've just started the next marathon. Like, even if you get into Slamdance, you are in a race to, if not get that film bought, to get that film traction, to get it attention, and then to get it into the next, the next sort of set of festivals from there, where you might be able to get a little bit more traction, a little bit more attention, and then you can come up with your own battle plan after that. Do you want to go at it alone? Like, do you want to do independent distribution, which is totally functional? Do you want to try to do a split rights deal? I mean, this is beyond the scope of today's conversation, probably, but I mean, there's a lot of different paths that you can take, but the main thing you need to think about when you hit that first festival is, what's my plan going forward? Do I have a marketing strategy? How am I going to reach my audience? Who is my audience? And you're going to learn that through the festivals as well. But yeah, you're going to want to think of nonprofits you might be able to partner with, or other groups that are out there. There's lots of ways you can get your film out, but I think that launching at a festival it's just the way I know how to do it.
Tanaz and Amanda, so I think I would agree with Cullen here from a feature film point of view, but from a short filmmaking point of view, I think it can be different. And we saw that, for example, in the early days at Slamdance with alumni Don Hertzfeld, an animator who started actually one of the first websites which showed his work. So creating really, your own identity through maybe a website or through a program of your own work. But Tanaz, can you speak to that? Is that something that you have done? You've collected your work and curated it yourself on a website?
I have no website. I should get a website. No. I always feel like it's weird when people ask about distribution with a short, because I'm like, I don't really know what to say about that. I think the best thing you can do is hope to get enough attention so that you can get money for your next project, so that you can get on, some website where you get more views, where you can get representation if you don't have it. I mean, it's a very intermediary step, short films, so distribution is kind of like, I feel like the best thing that could happen for a short, and I think you would probably agree, is Vimeo staff picks coming out of a festival. That's like fantastic. I feel like it's like the biggest win for a short film. So that's distribution for short film.
Yeah. I was thinking about the internet. I have a Vimeo account, so that's where my work is sort of collected online, along with my website. And Vimeo staff picks are amazing, and they really can sort of launch you out into sort of more work, more commissions, which is how I live. commissions, and that's how I get to the next film. But the difference between having your work shown in a festival versus the internet is immediacy as opposed to waiting. But the internet is so wide that a lot of the times you get a Vimeo staff pick, and then you have 20 emails asking you to work with a musician or a lot of other people who maybe don't know your work as well as someone who curated your work at a festival. So they're looking for an animator, but maybe they aren't specifically looking for you. They might want like a 3D animator, but they don't quite know what they want because it's just such a huge pool. So the benefit to showing the work in a festival, maybe before you put it online, for me has been getting like this really specific community who knows what I'm trying to do.
And of course, I mean, Slamdance, and there are other film festivals like this too. Certainly we have sales every year at Slamdance, but really you would say that Slamdance's value, I think, really is a festival discovery. It discovers talent. So Tanaz, you have a feature right now that I think that you're developing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming then your short film showing at Slamdance and other film festivals has helped you get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no other way that I could have made it without showing, without having people experience it in a room and seeing, because, the big thing too is people respond more to audience reaction sometimes than they do to an actual film. So if you have people who you want to work with, they should be in a room with you at a festival and watching it. It changes everything. So I think, definitely my shorts and going to festivals has helped.
So we're going to open it up for Martin. Thank you so much. Martin's been reminding me that let's bring you all for any questions that you have here. We've started to approach distribution, but that is the next section here that we're just about to begin. So if you have any distribution questions or any other questions at all, please.
Yeah, you guys were talking about test screenings, and I've mostly done shorts. How do you get a test screening together for a short?
Martin, I think maybe you're asking me to, maybe for the audio and the... Okay, all right, great. Instead of my voice, just ask it. Yes.
Yeah, I was just asking for getting a test audience together. If you're a short filmmaker, how are you guys managing that?
I'm assuming cost is an issue. I think that it's hard. I mean, I was lucky enough to be in this program at the American Film Institute. And if you get into this program, you're allowed to use their facilities for the rest of your life. So you just have to book and do it. But prior to this, I would just literally be like, which friend of mine has a big house? Can I swing a deal at Soho House? And just, promise them like nothing. In order to get a screening. Like you gotta just, be scrappy, which is what we do.
I was gonna say the same thing. Just someone's living room, borrow a projector, get all your friends and their friends if you're looking for a bigger audience.
We have one question here that came in, and we've touched on this a little bit, but anyone speak up first? What type of thing can a film festival do to help make filmmakers feel like they are part of a loyal family and community?
Alcohol.
Yeah, talk to the other filmmakers. I mean, you're there. It's a great opportunity to just meet people in your community. Hey, what's your film? What is it about? When is it screening? Try and go see it. See their work. Meet them. That's the moment the festival provides. Take advantage of it. It's very rare. It's that easy, really, and alcohol helps.
Also, like this is a great example. Like we get to be on this panel. It seems like festivals that really have your back will continue to have your back far into the future, which is amazing.
As part of my job, I run Slamdance, so I'm actually going to speak about that a little bit here. I think one of the ways that can happen, where you really bring in and create a community, is to prepare the filmmakers, to show them that you are really putting them in first place. It's an artist-led organization, and I think that is something that you should all be looking at in your your festival search. Adele and Alina here, I think they would say the same thing. But we're very passionate about supporting our filmmakers, our artists, and we are an artist-led organization. And I think we bring that not just to the festival, but we bring that in preparation. So I hope, we've spoken about it a little bit, but we try very hard to prepare filmmakers for what is about to happen at the festival. And for a lot of film festivals, when you're accepted, you get a notice, a very nice notice, congratulations, you're in the film festival, turn up on this day, here's your screening times and here's your tickets. That's not what happens at Slamdance at all, and I think that also, there are other really good film festivals out there that will spend time, tender loving care, if you like, on preparing the filmmaker for their experience wherever it may be around the world. So look for that, and I think that can really help build a film festival community.
I was just wondering if any of you had any experience with building momentum So the question really goes to, you've now gotten into a film festival. How do you build your own momentum to guarantee people at your screening or alert the press or whatever outside of a publicist? Or if there's any channels that you would think of outside of postering over HBO's stuff?
I don't know if I learned this at Slamdance, but another filmmaker had a clipboard that they would give to the audience, and there probably are a few film festivals that would frown on this and ask you not to do it. Name, location, email, right? Now you can reach them. You hand it out during your Q&A, so they're sitting there listening, they pass the clipboard around, and they're gonna sign it because they just saw your film and they liked it, otherwise they're not gonna sign it. Now you can reach them, you know, when you're gonna have another screening, when it's gonna be released, when whatever, you know, when you get a good review and say, hey, you just wanted to let you know that, you know, that film you saw last month at such and such festival, you know, we got reviewed by whoever. However much you want to hit them with stuff going on with your film. It's a great way to gain direct access. And I've done it at multiple festivals now, so I have an audience in Philly and an audience in this town, and an audience in that town, and sometimes you get into another festival that's also in that town. So now you could say, hey, you love my film, tell your friends, it's screening again. It's a really simple, direct way to get your audience, get them, they're right there, you know? I found that to be remarkable. That was like a slap in the forehead, like, oh my God, I could have been doing this for the last 5 festivals, you know? So that was huge for me.
Yes. Let me give you
a mic. For longer short films, like let's say 20 to 30 minutes, like, is there less of a likelihood of something like that getting programmed in a festival? And if so, like, what's a good plan of action for a longer short film?
Have you had a short film over 20 minutes?
I haven't made one, no, but I'm currently programming for Slamdance, so I'm watching a lot that are that length, yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think if you're going to make a film that's 20 to 30 minutes long, you have to have a really good reason for it to be that length. It has to be a really solid idea, and if there's extra stuff in there that you don't think is necessary, just ask yourself why it's there and see what happens when you cut it out. Doesn't mean 20 to 30 minute films can be amazing, but that's the experience I've had watching hundreds of them.
I literally cut out a scene of my short to keep it under 20 minutes. It's 18 minutes and 56 seconds, but it's under 20. Do you know what I mean? So I would say, don't do it.
Just before you do that, and if I can just borrow the mic, because we're just like doing good mic work here. I would agree with you. Shorter, usually the better, but I will say this. I don't think there's ever been such a great time as now to really experiment and to change things up. You could say at the moment this industry is in a really sorry state in terms of distribution of feature films, of independent distribution films. It's still happening, but there has been a devaluation of independent film. We saw this at Sundance this year where Amazon, Netflix, they didn't buy anything. The films that were shown had already that were going to do well, have done well. They'd already been made by those platforms. Many expensive films turned up there and were unsold. So what is there? There's you. There is the next generation of artists who are trying to experiment, to express themselves in different ways. And here I actually just go back. I'm kind of contradict myself here. But there was a short film a few years ago which came in at 40 minutes, which is just about a feature, but somehow it crept into us as being a short film. It's called The Accountant. And no one was bothering to watch this film because it was considered too long at film festivals. We programmed it, and a year later it won the Oscar, the short Oscar. So you have to be bold. You have to really believe in what you're creating, that it can work. Certainly do the test screenings, but once again, it comes back to your own identity, who you are as an artist. So though that's a really important question, you've got to weigh that in there. Do not be controlled by a length, I would say, of a short film or even of a feature film.
I just actually wanted to piggyback on that. I talked to another programmer. We have a film that's 18 minutes long, and had a really hard time finding a home and an audience, and then it started to pick up momentum. And two things that programmer at Cleveland told me. He said, if you earn your minutes, like if you get to the end of the film and you're like, oh, you just wasted my time, that's very different than if every minute is earned. And look for the festivals that program a lot of shorts, because they have more time for those longer films. Whereas if, like, Sundance, 10,000 submissions for 65 short films, there's other places that program 180 or 400 short films, and they may be more able to play a longer film like that. So you should look at that if you have a long film, and what festivals play a lot of movies.
Hi, does anyone have any experience, or can you speak at all to using a short film as a proof of concept for either a feature or a limited series? From the back, Whiplash, thank you.
One filmmaker is David Huang, experimental animator. You could roughly describe him as a very, very talented artist. And he showed his film at Slamdance, and it didn't sell, but Bjork saw his work, and then he started working with Bjork. And you could say the concepts of his art contained in that short film were further explored in a collaboration with Bjork, and now he's become one of her main collaborators. So there's plenty of examples like that. You should speak with us afterwards, and we'll give you a whole. Come and see Adele, myself, and Alina, and we'll give you a whole lot more. But I think it happens every year, and that's one of the reasons why we're very excited about short filmmaking at Slamdance. Other questions? One that came in. How many of the panelists, it says, wrote and submitted their projects to screenplay competitions and maybe to Slamdance?
I did. I won 3rd place in your contest several years ago.
Which is a very, it's very, very competitive, screenplay competitions and film festivals. And what happened after that? Did that help get the short film made? Did it help you?
I mean, it always helps to win a screenplay award if you're trying to get money from other people for your short film. It's always nice to be like, somebody has, somebody actually, not just anybody, but somebody who's really well known, like Slamdance, has recognized the script. So that always helps with money. But what happened was I made the short, and it was 24 minutes long, and it didn't get into Slamdance. That was my only film I think I've made that didn't get into Slamdance.
That's the way it goes. I know we have to wrap things up here in a moment, but one way I think we can wrap that up is that we talked about sustainability earlier on. I brought this up, and the value of knowing what your next project is going to be, actually, as you're presenting the one that you've just made. So can we just talk about our next projects and how you prepared? Because I think you've all got projects right now, and you all have next projects at Slamdance as well. So you can talk about that process, Pablo.
I can't add to that. I'm still looking for the next project. I really am. I'm starting to have some ideas about the parameters of what it could be, but we've had a couple, I mean, talk about the value of festivals, just to add to that briefly, you know, there have been opportunities where we've met other filmmakers. We met a guy who was working on a screenplay about a true a subject that's something that had really happened, and we thought that would be a great documentary. So we started collaborating with them about making it a documentary as well. So I couldn't have predicted that that could happen. I think that project has since fallen apart, but so I don't know. I don't have the next project. I'm soul searching.
I do, but I think I have something else that would be more relevant and helpful than just talking about what I'm working on right now, which is so labs. If you have a documentary or a feature, apply to labs. They're super helpful along the way. A lot of the audience stuff can happen there. You'll make friends in that process, and you'll find them very supportive, like Film Independent, AFI. Those are just two, to name a few. The other thing is, if you are like really low on money and you get accepted into a festival, sometimes running a Kickstarter at the last second is a great way to raise capital for like a publicist, you shouldn't pay a sales agent, but a publicist, and to pay for, like, say you have to go to Park City. You may not say that's the reason, say like, we need it to finish post-production, but it's, but people understand when there's high stakes and they're like, oh my gosh, you got into this great festival, like, yeah, we'll support you for that. So yeah, I think that's one useful trick when you get into a festival. Like if you don't have it all done yet, that's a good lever to pull.
I'm making my first feature, and if everything goes according to plan, which it never does, it'll be shooting in March. And I have, with my co-creator, we have a TV show, which Refinery 29 gave us development for, and which we're going to take out now to networks.
I'm also searching for my next project, but since Slamdance, I've actually had the chance to collaborate with many, many filmmakers I met there. So I have to say that once you get there, it is scary, but also enjoy yourself and meet as many people as possible, because I found so many close collaborators and friends.
Yeah, developing the next project, same writer, and I was lucky to have that working relationship with that writer, so we knew going into Slamdance, like, we wanted to make sure we had that stuff ready so we can get into the room and talk about it right after. So I think going into that, knowing we're going to show it, it was good to have, because that's a limited window afterwards. I mean, it's awesome to be able to show your film at Slamdance or anywhere else, but really it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like the flavor of the month, and then that window is gone. It's not forever gone, like, it's still a big deal, but you got to really jump on that, like, afterwards. You know, don't sit on it for too long and hit it hard. Like, the days when you get back from Slamdance, like, go get yourself in a room, you know, get yourself talking to those people. That's what I've noticed, at least.
I've just finished a new film in June, so I'm getting that out into the world through festivals, and currently just working on a lot of commission music videos and things like that, and applying for a lot of grants and residencies for hopefully the spring and summer to make my next short.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank you all very, very much for this, and thank you also for your questions. And also, thanks very much to GTEC once again. And I think Martin now is going to come up and the Workflow Master and do part 2 here of our workshop here tonight. So come on up, Martin.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? It's okay. Don't worry too much. We're just trading one Englishman out for another. It's not too much to worry about. Don't be alarmed. Okay, basically, my name is Martin Christian. We're sitting in the G Technology office right now, which is soon to be the G Technology studio. And the reason why we're one of those things into the other, is basically it's for you guys. We wanted to create a place that we could demonstrate workflow, that people could come to, be part of a community, and really, to be honest, answer a lot of the questions that we've been all circulating tonight. So anyway, my name is Martin Christian. I chose Creative Sherpa as my job title, largely just because I was asking my dad what's the most pretentious thing that I could call myself, and he came up with that, and so it kind of stuck after that. But basically, we're going to run through this. It's a quick 90-minute presentation, don't worry. I'm only kidding. What we've got here is, as you know, you guys have all been through it. You've all been through it. The creative process is very complex. Everybody's tripped up at every hurdle. I've screwed up more than I've succeeded, that is for sure, in the years that I've been doing this. But with that something, and this is us who says this, but I think we're pretty on the money with this, the intrinsic value of data and storage is lost until it's part of the creative process. And basically that is really, really fancy, and I'm aware of how it sounds coming out of an English accent as well. But that is a very, very fancy way of saying that everything we do, from recording audio to filmmaking to photography to anything that we do, graphic layouts, the other step of the process and every other step of that process always comes back to data. It comes back to storage. And it may seem very strange that G Technology is taking such a kind of deep interest in all of you and what you do, but that's because the hard drive isn't really interesting, to be honest, until you guys get a hold of it and do what you do. So this is the bit, and we're going to see how interactive you guys are. We're going to see, because a lot of people may sit there and just go, and not want to talk to me, which is absolutely fine. Basically, I'm going to take a quick poll. So out of everybody who's been making their films, making their projects here, who feels like they've got their whole workflow, and we're talking about on set, and we're talking about post-production workflow, who feels like they got it locked down, they don't need our help, you know, we don't need your help, I've got it locked down, I've got it perfect. Show of hands, who thinks? Oh wow, there is not one hand going up in the room. Oh, we got one? Have we got one? Almost, you're kind of like, yeah, pretty confident, isn't it? Okay, probably the next category is more in your wheelhouse. But who here feels like, okay, we got it pretty good, but I definitely need some help with it? And that should be the vast majority. Well, vast majority, actually, give or take, about a third of you, that's not too bad. Who here feels like I'm giving them an anxiety attack and they'd really prefer that I shut up, and not just because of my accent? That's why, okay, well, we're getting, okay. It's a little bit there, but this is what we ask people. Every time we stand in front of somebody, we ask these exact same questions, and it's because it's really important, because we do get the small amount of people who are absolutely on top of everything that they do, and they love it. And they go, yeah, I know what I'm doing, get out of here, kid, you crazy kid. And then we've got the rest of the kind of close to half, under half, who go, yeah, I'm doing all right, but I screwed it up a couple of times, or something didn't happen, or we lost a copy, and I need some help. The vast majority of people, it's not really something that we think about, and it's genuinely why it gets left to the end. I was a DIT for many, many years, and pretty much every single job was 5 minutes before I got on set going, we're shooting on this, and we don't know what we're doing, and I don't know who we are, and do we need this? And I was just like, okay, no worries, slow down a bit and stop crying. But that was kind of generally how it went. I calmed them down, and I asked them the right questions, and then we got to the end of it. So basically what I'm going to do, and I'm going to keep this brief, but we're going to go through some of the stuff. We're going to go through some of the workflow myths, and I do hope this is really helpful to you. So if it's completely boring, just throw stuff at me, and I'll just cry and run away. But we're going to go through some of the workflow myths. We're going to go through some of the basics of workflow, which for some of you is going to be like teaching you to suck eggs. For some of you, you're going to go, oh, that's actually quite interesting. And then the rest of it, we're going to try and apply that as to what's next, how we take that to the next step. So, common workflow myths. Common only amongst us lot, but is that it's so expensive, is that to do it right, it's just like, I need a budget, I need this, I need $100,000, and it's just not true. The fact is, this is the way that we think about it, and this is going to sound like a bit of a shameless plug, but one of the things that we did at G-Tech recently is we changed all of our pro stuff to a 5-year warranty, and we did this. Now, at first, the product guys told me this, and I was like, yay, warranty, who cares? But actually, I realized that it's really, really important, and the reason why we talk to a lot of people doing episodic television, commercial companies, film companies, to be able to have the reuse value of these products is really, really important. So when I'm talking to an episodic television show, When I say, hey, you got a 5-year warranty on this, this basically means whatever you're purchasing now, you're going to be able to spread the cost of that over 5 seasons of something or other. I was going to name a show, but I realized we're live streaming, so I can't make fun of any show names. The next part of it is that it's too complicated. Now, I'm not going to lie, I did this for many, many years. This has been a large part of my career, and all jobs that I've done in that seem to come back to this. But it is complicated. I'm not going to lie to you. It is complicated. Once you get down to those kind of zeros and ones, yeah, it's pretty sleep-worthy, some of the stuff. I enjoy it. But the main point of it is, and this is going to sound a little cheesy, but something we take for granted now is lights, camera, action, or sound speed, that kind of process that we have on set. We are trying to apply the same thing to workflow. So you don't have to know everything. You don't have to know the ins and outs. You don't have to know this I/O and what's the difference between Thunderbolt ports and data rates and blah, blah. But what you do need to know is what's coming in and what's coming out of any department, of any workflow, of any piece of that workflow. And it's more about just knowing the questions to ask and knowing the answers to give, really. We'll figure this out later. I told you about that. I always get this call, or I used to get this call. But you would always get it 5 minutes before, and they go, hey, we're shooting tomorrow, and we don't have anything. We'll figure it out later. And it's because of that large, rather scary red part of the pie there I was showing you, is because thinking about figuring it out later, that's what makes it expensive. Because you're always digging yourself out of a hole. And 9 times out of 10, you've got to buy your way out of that hole. And you don't want to do that. What you want to do is think about it early on. Get your DIT, get your AC. The way ACs are educating themselves in this process is amazing, and it goes all the way up through post-production. So get these people, talk to them, and really make that plan ahead of time, and then you won't be knocked in the side when it comes to doing that. Workflow basics, where to start? Okay. These are the 3 points, and everybody with me? Nobody falling asleep? Okay, we're good. Right, here we go. Production, workflow, cornerstones. We have the technical parts of production, the post requirements, and then the physical parts of it. So, the technical parts of it as a DIT, this is pretty simple. What are we shooting on? How many days are we shooting? How many pages? That gives me an idea of how many terabytes I've got to shoot. All of this stuff is just calculation. Your DIT will do it for you, or if you've got a data manager, it's not hard to do. We've got great partners who have little calculators on their website that can figure this all out for you. But it's very, very important because I'm pretty sure, whether you want to admit to it or not, everybody has plugged in a hard drive, started their shoot, and get about 3/4 through the shoot, and you go, oh, we've run out of space because we shot too much, and now I'm putting it on a thumb drive, and now I'm putting it on toilet paper, and doing all this kind of stuff, and it's just a pile of stuff at the end of it, and you don't want that. What you want is all your data consolidated. So planning this ahead of time, really knowing and having an idea of what you're shooting, realistically shooting. When it comes down to an indie level, it's the same thing with music videos as well. You're going to overshoot. And why? Because you're always trying to get the best shot. So prepare for that. Always give yourself that latitude, and then give yourself 25% over that. Don't be afraid. And yes, it's going to cost a little bit of money, but you know what's going to be a real pain is when you're in the middle of nowhere and you've got to go find a hard drive and it's still FireWire 800 and you just, nobody's got FireWire 800 anymore. So, then we talk about the physical parts of production. Oh, sorry, I have to speak up a bit. Sorry about that. Then we talk about the physical parts of production. Now, this is literally what it sounds like, and I won't anecdote you too hard, but I did a shoot in Long Beach. I got a call. I went on the shoot the next day, and they were like, yeah, we're shooting in Long Beach in the harbor. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. I didn't ask any questions because I'm an idiot. So when I got there, what I found out was my only power source was a 24-volt marine cigarette lighter on a boat. We weren't shooting in Long Beach. We were shooting off of Long Beach. And that didn't work out very well with my Mac Pro that sucks 100 watts and all this kind of stuff. So knowing all these parts of it, knowing all these components of it are very, very important. Where are you going to be shooting? How hot is it? Is it going to be raining? Do you need coverage? Do you need, where is the data going to go? Am I in a hotel room? Am I in the back of a car? Because you're going to need batteries. You're going to need to run the engine, so you need extra gas. It's all these parts. This is what makes up this part of it, not only on set, but it stops you falling into those pitfalls. And with the physical part of it, we also start now talking about workflow scheduling. So we have a show that we've been helping. They're shooting out in Alaska right now. And as you can imagine, the mail, getting to and from Alaska isn't that easy. It's a little infrequent, and quite frankly, it's a little worrying at best whether your stuff's even going to get there. So what we had to do was build into the workflow. We had to make sure that whatever they were shooting with, that they had the next one queued up, ready to go. So that as that was in transit, the one coming back from post in Burbank had to be with them. We had to make sure that the schedule worked for us. We couldn't just go and go, okay, well, we got to drive, we send that back, and we get that back. Because from Alaska to Fourth and back, or whatever the phrase is, you're looking at 4 to 5 days. That means you can't, if your drive's in transit and you've got nothing else to go to and you're in the middle of Alaska, you've got nothing to write to for 4 to 5 days. So that pretty much means production stopped, and imagine what that's going to cost you. Now we go on to the post requirements. I would say this is kind of as simple as it is complicated. This is just knowing, and we touched on it before when Peter was talking to the panel, about your post requirements, your post workflow, knowing what is needed. Now, a data manager will be on set. We will, just copy stuff, and that's fantastic. A DIT doing a much more comprehensive job will want to transcode. So, get your 1080p transcodes or your 2K transcodes, depending on what you're doing, and be able to deliver that to post. Now, having that ready, again, it helps eliminate this stopgap of, right, we were shooting, and now I've got to sit there for a week and a half and wait for all my rushes so I can actually cut anything with it. Being able to work that into your workflow, being able to actually prepare for that means that you come straight off the shoot, and to be honest, you're straight into post, and you're not forgetting what shot happened. You're not forgetting this, and there's been too much time, because as you know, a week in this business, you can pretty much forget what you were doing yesterday. So then we're going to touch on this. This is a little bit of a wild card, but I wanted to touch on it because Peter touched on it. I wanted to talk about it because we talk about deliverables. We talk about archiving as well, which can mean so many different things, to be honest, from when you're doing a commercial, micro budgets, all the way up to enormous budgets. It can mean so many different things. But having that available, as you know, going into Slamdance, going into all these festivals, having that media available, and just it's something that you can reference to. It's the one thing I would say that I learned was I would have all my projects, I would have my project files, I would have all the raw. Now, I don't need all the raw, but what I do need is I need those stills. I need those rushes that I make those promos with, the thumbnails that I put online for social media. I need those things. And what I don't want to do is keep going back to the archive and digging through and going, is that a good still? Oh no, he's picking his nose. Oh, is that a good still? No, it's not. So I don't want to have to go through that. So again, building that as part of your workflow. And when you see that magic moment when you're shooting, make note of it. Go to your data manager or your AC or DIT and go, can we pull a still for that? I need that because I know I'm going to need it. It's all part of the promotion as well as part of the production. So what's next with that? Now, we've really kind of touched on this already, and it's really honestly about preparation. Something I will kind of talk about is we talk about sort of it's so expensive, and yes, it is expensive if you go and leave it to the last minute and you've got to buy your way out of the hole, basically. But really what's more important, I'll leave you with an anecdote of somebody that we were working with. They were shooting multiple cameras, but they had one reader, so it was one card in, we go to the next one card in, go to the next one card in, go to the next one. He's using small drives, fast-ish, but they were shooting, I think, 6K at the time. So that's only going to go so fast. So we're doing that. Now, what we did was we redesigned the workflow for them. And we didn't do anything too amazing. We just used what we had in our tool bag at G Technology, and we took the shuttles. We made it so that all the cameras could ingest all at the same time. So that eliminated that. So that chopped a bunch of time out there. Fantastic. That meant that his first copy, we were like, okay, well, let's go to SSD. Fantastic. So then we go to the next one. Then we've got the copy that lands on set, and it was a big 96 terabyte job and kept the entire project. But what it meant is that he constantly had that available to him because, again, that transfer back and forth from post was a little bit worrying sometimes. So it meant that he's always got a copy, and he actually dug them out of the mud a few times. And then we talk about so on and so forth. Now, by the end of this, it just sounds like we're just going, yeah, just SSDs and readers, and yay, isn't that fun? But what it really meant was, and what we realized that it meant, he was staying a minimum of an hour on set every single night, extra, overtime. He was doing an overtime of an hour every single day. Now, you could go, okay, well, that's his time, but that's not really all it was. We had the locations manager, we had the security, we had the producer, the PM wasn't going to leave until he was gone. All this kind of stuff, and whatever scale that happens in, like I said, from micro budget all the way up, it costs money. And we basically figured out, we sat there and did the math, and we went, okay, we're speeding this up, and we're speeding this up, speeding this up. We're getting him out of there. Actually, we're getting him done 30 minutes early so he can actually get his gear down and be done at wrap. And over what was a 10-month season for him, we saved him $40,000, which is nothing to sniff at. It isn't for me anyway. I don't know what your income's like, but it's nothing for me to sniff at. But anyway, that's what I really wanted to part with you, to be honest, was I just wanted to talk about preparation. I really wanted to talk about how just planning your workflow appropriately, and it may be a little bit nerdy, it may be a little bit boring, but it is going to save you. It's ultimately going to save you. It's going to save you money. It's going to make everything move quicker, and it also just, it puts you in this fantastic professional mindset to be able to take your film and really make the most out of it. Take whatever project it is and really extrapolate that and really make it the most it can be. The other thing we're going to leave you with is if you'd like to go to www.gtechnology.com, everybody, and enter the code SLAMDUNCE10 in capital letters, you can save 10% on any hard drive that you choose. So I just thought I'd give you that shameless plug there, but please do visit the website. Please do take advantage of this offer. And I think before I'm going to skip to that, I'd like to say thank you. I'm going to ask, has anybody got any questions? Ooh. Would everybody just like to grab a drink and some food? Yeah, oh, I don't know. I think that's what we want to do. Okay, fantastic. Well, last of all, I would like to thank everybody. I'd love to thank all the panelists. I'd love to thank Peter as well, Slamdance, also all of our partners here who made this possible, Blackmagic and Teradek, and I've forgotten some of the others, so I apologize for that. But also thank you to you guys, for everybody for coming. Fantastic event. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you around the village.